in cozy beige.
Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 1st of December, 2024. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today is Zachary Burgess.
Still just about.
And Robert Kemp.
I'm just trying to think whether beige is actually cozy. Like, is that what you associate? I guess it is. Like, creamy colours are sort of supposed to be like relaxy colours, I guess.
Well, it's because it's sort of the colour of wool, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
It's not a very cottage core colour, though, if you're talking aesthetics. You know what I mean? That's more kind of rustic sort of browns and things. And
I guess,
reds,
yeah, maybe beige is too bright. What does magnolia count as? Is magnolia a beige?
Yeah. Does magnolia have a bit of yellow in it?
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of more on the creamy side.
Not that much, though. Yeah,
like the weakest tea imaginable.
Magnolia tea.
The milkiest weak tea, yeah.
Yeah, you don't really have beige tea, do you? No matter how much milk you put in there.
An Earl Grey isn't grey.
No.
Even if you just lightly dip the make it Zach's way, right? but do it so you just lightly fill it up with milk first, and then just lightly dip the Earl Grey tea bag in for like a hot second. It's still not a grey.
Presumably, Earl Grey is named for an Earl called Grey, right? But is Grey like a family name, or is it like a place? You know, is it the Earl of Grey, or is it just?
Point. Is it just his name? Is he just Mr. Grey?
Yeah, Mr. Grey.
And was that person ever actually real? Or is it a purely fictional character they made up for branding purposes?
For branding? I suspect it's probably real, right? I mean, that's a whole British Empire thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Tea.
That's how tea happened.
Do you think he went over there and grabbed all the tea? It was like, this is my tea.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, must have been. He must have gone over there and said, I hereby declare this strain mine. I shall sell it throughout the world. I have conquered this leaf. What would you name after yourself? Like food-wise? Food or drink-wise?
Oh, good question.
Not just food-wise.
Yeah. Food or drink-wise? What would it look like? If you could discover something or make something new, what would it be?
I mean, would you have a particular topping of pizza is the question, Rob, or will you just have...
Yeah, that's the problem.
What
I think pizza is already too much about the freedom of expression of toppings.
Freedom, right? You want something specific, like Earl Grey tea.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Well, you'd have to have one individual topping, like some kind of special pepperoni or something.
Like maybe a breed of cow would work, right? Because then I could have like a special beef.
Instead of an Angus, you'd have a Kempy.
Yeah, Robco beef.
Oh no, not Robco. Let's not have any food come from Robco.
Yeah, maybe that would do. Like, you know, because Wagyu beef has some sort of, you know, or Kobe beef that all has that. I know those are more based off,
right?
Yeah, and they're based off like practices of how the beef is raised rather than
that counts,
the breed
though.
It comes from. I think, but
we can expand this to include certain methods.
Maybe it may be a beef.
You wouldn't have a wine or I was going to say champagne, but that's a place that makes a type of sparkling wine, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's almost too easy, right? Because wines are like, wines are all about that. And same with beers, right? If I made a new beer, it's just any old name you want.
You have to say that like sparkling wine or whatever that's good quality is generally champagne, even if it's not champagne, right?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, it has to come from the Champagne region to be called champagne.
Indeed.
Otherwise,
so
it's sparkling wine,
prosecco or whatever. Yeah, it's a bit different.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have a region named after me. That's a problem. unless we can make wine in Kempton, which I don't own. So it's
you don't own Kempton.
No, I don't.
What's gone wrong in the past? Then?
Yeah, exactly. What happened to the
control slipped from your fingers?
Ross Kemp wasn't hard enough to keep it. You see.
Are you distantly related to Ross Kemp?
No, not as far as I know. Anyway, nor the members of Spandau Ballet.
Shame. And they weren't a ballet, and they weren't from Spandau. Is that right?
Neither of those things are true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What about you? What do you? Or should we project something onto you? Like if I was to have a train, if I was to eat a train.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have to be like things in a sequence, like a string or a train of things.
Oh, what, you reckon you'd be like a dining style or something like that? Like
yeah,
like a certain number of courses as a train.
Yeah, train style.
or have Yo Sushi already stolen your?
Yeah,
like it's conveyor belt sushi.
Yeah.
Should that really have been a train?
Those Japanese, they always get there first with those innovations.
I mean, it could be a form of cheese board, I suppose. Because you could just have a long sequence of cheeses.
It's a train of cheese.
Yeah.
Honestly,
now that's starting to always sound more like a challenge, though. Like, can you get through the cheese train?
Get on the cheese train.
Long cheese train. Can you manage the whole thing?
All aboard.
Is this like the new Hot Wings challenge, but where you get increasingly violent cheeses as you go through?
Violent cheeses. I mean, it's definitely a thing, having a course, right, of cheeses and having tasting them in sequence. Maybe that can be the thing. It's not something I do enough, though. Like, that's why I think there's a tendency at the Christmas indulgence period to maybe concentrate, in my family, maybe to concentrate on the sweeter kind of chocolate Yule logs, etc. I think it's the cheeses that need to stand out these days.
Yeah, man.
That is evidenced by Rob's fridge every year.
Yeah. Although, yeah, last few years, people have tried to get clever with it, right? And they've tried to get not just a nice cheese, if you see what I mean, not like a name of cheese. It will be a cheese infused with something.
Getting too clever.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'm not
raspberry in it or something.
I'm not so into that. Like, I can deal with my Wensleydale and fruit. Like, Wensleydale cranberry is lovely. I'm into that.
Sure.
But
yeah, but you don't want it embedded in cheese to start with. You want it to be optional. You want to choose what you think is the best option.
Yeah, you can combine it yourself.
Yeah, that's what. Well, I guess that's what I mean. Like a Wensleydale cranberry. You know, it's all one lump. That's actually quite nice. But like, I don't know. They tried both. I think both my mum and my brother, like independently, both got me like different brands of what was called a pizza cheese, but it's not really a. But it's not really a pizza. It's not a mozzarella, right? Like that's what pizza cheese is.
It's not
really.
a cheese
it's
for pizza.
No, it was like a.
This is just a marketing term, right?
Kinda, yeah. It was like
actual thing.
It had like herbs and a bit of pepper in it and a bit of tomato infused in it, and like it was all right if you melted it.
Right, but nothing. Yeah.
You know, why can't we have some fancy cheeses like a nice manchego or a love a camembert? Just give me a named cheese. Maybe a named cheese I've never had. Get crazy with it,
but not too crazy.
No, but I'd be in for the crazy. I'd try anything once.
Yeah, in moderation.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't get a lot of it, just in case it is really skank. Also, truffle cheese. Blah.
Truffle is way overdone.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me. I'm not a truffler.
I'm with you. I don't get truffle.
I don't get it.
We had some truffle mayonnaise at one point that was kind of okay, but it's like I think I would have preferred it without the truffle. Like,
yeah, totally.
I'm not into it.
People put truffle oil on everything, and it's
to try and be fancy.
Leave it alone.
I kind of get that it's expensive because it's rare and hard to find and all that kind of stuff, but it can't be rare and hard to find enough if we're making frickin' Heinz truffle mayonnaise.
No, exactly.
Well, it's not like that probably actually has any actual real truffle stuff in it.
Yeah, probably not.
It's probably just truffle flavours.
Truffle-esque, yeah.
So what are we lending your name to, Zach? Food-wise.
I mean, we already know the answer. It's burgers, isn't it?
But would you?
The next generation. That's your dad's thing, though. You have to have your own thing.
Yeah, you'd be forcing
the tradition of that.
Yeah, in your family. Okay.
You'd have to pay inheritance tax.
The dramatically complicated recipe of just making a burger.
But it's all about the spice
What
mix.
was the recipe? Was it secret or what was
No,
the
it was just a regular house burger.
What made it a McBurgess?
It was made in our house.
Was it made on Arga? No.
No, I always associate a McBurgess with the choice of having cucumber as a topping. Because that was done a couple of times.
We did that instead of like gherkin or whatever.
I like a cucumber in a barbecue burger. You're right that it isn't usually in there. I guess it's because it's not strongly flavored like a gherkin. It struggles to stand out.
Yeah, exactly. But then that's the challenge with making a burger in general, right? Like you want the individual component flavors to actually stand out, but I don't know. If you get I had a relatively disappointing festive burger last week, and but then that was the exact problem. It's like none of the individual ingredients were bad per se, but when you bit into it, it's like nothing stood out, and so it ended up being a sort of flavorless mush of a burger, which is hugely disappointing. Like it had quite a thick beef layer, and then it had like a cheese and a nice looking cheese layer.
Turkey, then,
well, no, it didn't. It wasn't.
Beef.
No, it had like a pulled pork layer and stuff like that in it, but the pulled pork was completely flavorless on it. So, yeah, anyway, it wasn't great. It wasn't a great burger. It had the mouth feel, but not the flavor.
It is tricky constructing and there's so much competition in that space.
Absolutely,
like constructing the perfect burger. Where do you stand on the smashed? That's the trend. Do you know what I mean?
Smashed beef instead of fully minced, you mean? Where
they, when they're, it's a relatively thin patty or whatever, and then they're smacking it with the, on the grill with the spatula, basically, or whatever it is. And then it goes all crispy on the outside, and then usually put two of them together for a burger instead of your chunkier one.
I don't know if I've necessarily had one like that.
This is the trend. It's all over the place now, and it definitely last couple of years came in.
But I can get behind that because a little bit of searing can taste quite nice.
It's
right?
pretty nice.
Yeah,
it's different, and you will notice that now. I expect if you go to, I don't know, but I expect if you go to Byron in Ipswich or something, they'll now have a smash burger on the menu that when they didn't before.
Interesting.
I would be because every single burger chain is doing it.
Yeah, they should. Well, at least it gives them more room to put layers of cheese in between. So there's that,
Indeed,
it's like an XL double cheese thing. It's like, well, you've got a gap in between those patties, have you? That's where the cheese goes.
I still stand by the American cheese. It's got to be square.
Yeah, man. I need to be able to. I'd love to be able to source whatever the cheese is that they put into like a McDonald's or a Burger King burger. Right? I still believe that is different from anything you can actually buy in the supermarket, and it's.
Yeah.
No, I want that. I want whatever they have, and there's just no way of purchasing that or that I know of.
I remember years and years ago. I'm not one for watching much broadcast TV or even especially cooking programs, but I think I caught an old Heston Blumenthal TV show where he was.
Was this the Ultimate Burger thing?
Yeah, Ultimate Burger, and he was like, "Well, I've got to have the American cheese, and I can't get." That this doesn't exist in like a high quality, so I have to create it from absolute scratch, and I have to research what the chemicals are to go into making this.
How on earth is it made? Because it is lovely. I do love that, especially the Burger King cheese. Oh, it's that's a thing. If they just sold that would be good.
Well, I mean, I think they probably have done that at some point, right? Where the specific companies have made a packaged version of that for supermarkets.
Can you do the thing like with the customize your order, like have it BK, order it your way or whatever, and just edit the order so it's just a huge pile of cheese?
And then just take it home and use it later.
Yeah, exactly.
Slogan.
You just order a burger that's nothing but cheese and then be like, I'm not eating this. This is a way of buying cheese.
Have it your way at BK.
Cheese. That slogan's 30 years old. Does it still apply?
I'm not sure it does, but you can at least on the McDonald's takeaway kiosk things, you can customize your burgers to extreme degrees.
I mean, if you want
to the point where I was watching a video the other day that was saying here's a McDonald's hack for how to get more chicken selects for less, and that is order the chicken select wrap, but then turn everything that you don't want off, and it's actually
unwrap it.
Yeah. The chicken select's inside the wrap. Like you can order multiples of those and get it for cheaper than if you bought a chicken select box. Like
that's a good hack.
It's silly, but yeah, it works.
Yeah, if you were going to try and use that to buy cheese, what you'd need is like them to have the option to like have it as a side, like have it on the side. Like if they allowed you to make the argument that you'd want to buy a burger with one of the toppings placed outside of it, so you could put it on yourself.
Well, I'm pretty sure. Like I saw a post once of someone who did that with a Big Mac meal, right? And they maxed out the possible options for all of the like insides, and it I think it went up to like 99 for all of the optional pieces. So they didn't know how to serve this, so they basically just brought out like the burger in the middle as it normally would be, and then a platter of all the other things around it.
That doesn't seem like something you can get away with very often.
No, you could definitely probably only do that once and see if that restaurant will actually go ahead with it.
Yeah.
Because then surely they'll be boned for all the rest of the orders. It's like, why are we 99 bits of cheese down? It's like, yeah, someone ordered them all.
They're all gone. Our cheese quotas are all wrong. We'll have to recalibrate for the person that gets to eat, buying up all the cheese.
Why are we out of Big Mac sauce? Someone ordered a jug. You see in America, you can actually
funny this week, McDonald's related, potentially funny. I was mildly drunk. We were in the West End, Oxford Street. Oh, actually, we're at Bond Street, and had a very nice time in a wine bar. Very, very fancy, nice. And then we were like, should we get McDonald's on the way home? Because I hadn't eaten or whatever. And went into, Bond Street, there's like a whole like shopping centre there or whatever, where the tube is like inside the shopping centre.
Okay. And
so we went in and there's a McDonald's there. Immediately, I was like, should we get McDonald's? And it was like 2 seconds away. So we walked in and it was right on the right. But it's a small one where it's just takeaway and there's no seating.
Oh, okay.
And ordered and got it really quick. It's not the whole deal where you order on screens and then wait for your number to come up. It was like old fashioned. Like
there's a person.
Just go to the person, and to the point where the thing I ordered, which was a Big Mac, they had it ready in the old style, and they just handed it to me. I didn't even have to go into a queue or anything.
Huh.
Amazing. So I got that in a paper bag,
like a chip shop, but it's McDonald's.
Yeah. So that was good. But then it was like where everyone split up then because they were going to different tubes. Some people were going to Bond Street. It's easier for me to go to Oxford Circus. So I was walking along Oxford Street with my bag of McDonald's thinking, I don't really want to take this on the tube. And it's going to get cold. It's cold. I need to find somewhere to sit and eat this. And as I was thinking this, walking along Oxford Street, what did I find? A McDonald's.
Oh, wow. So you went in a different McDonald's.
I went in the other McDonald's, which had the seating, with my McDonald's from the Bond Street McDonald's.
Oh, that's funny.
And I ate my McDonald's from the other McDonald's in the McDonald's.
I mean,
it works.
Yeah, they're not going to pick you up and be like, you can't eat in that and there. So
no, I don't think
it's so. It's like, I don't think you know where I ordered this.
It's all gravy, isn't it? Anyway, so that was funny, I thought.
Well, is it all gravy, though? Is McDonald's like one of those things that operates like a franchisee?
Oh, yeah, I could have taken the money from one.
Yeah, and then abused the seating of another. Yeah,
absolutely abused it, yeah. I think there are enough people in Oxford Street McDonald's that I don't think I impacted their bottom line very much.
The last couple of times I've ordered from McDonald's, their online stuff hasn't worked. It hasn't worked properly.
Oh, really?
I use the app because you get reward points, right? And you can cash those in for burgers later, which is
nice.
It works out pretty well. But the last couple of times I've ordered from once from the Stowe Market one nearby, and once from the Ipswich White House side, and both times the app didn't work properly, and so I had to go in and inside and be all or someone came to the window and be like, "Yeah, this is balked. Just bear with," and then ended up getting some freebies out of it because I was trying to spend my reward points, but I couldn't spend my reward points because the app wasn't working for anyone. It wasn't just me. Apparently, it was a real problem for the last couple of weeks for both these branches, and so I ended up just getting free stuff because I couldn't spend my reward points that I was trying to spend. So that was good.
Not the best.
No, I mean, yeah, slightly increased level of hassle. You know, for something that you're just trying to drive through and get, but like, it was all right. Got a free burger out of it. It's all good. Thanks, Mackie D's.
Thanks, Maccas.
Thanks.
Maccas.
Still,
Snow Pikachu shouting melons.
it's the only important thing about McDonald's in the stock market specifically.
Melons!
Melons.
I did see that in America that you can buy a jug of the McRib sauce for $20.
Or
You
naturally.
can?
Yeah.
What,
I mean, that's probably
direct?
just how they get rid of it when they can't get the pork.
Yeah. I think that they're doing it like as a Christmas special. It's got like knitted, Christmas jumper aesthetic on it.
Because that's a very Christmassy thing in McRib, apparently.
So Christmassy.
Americans don't even usually do ham at Christmas, do they? Or is it the other way around? They are the ones that do ham at Christmas.
Because they have turkey at Thanksgiving, so they don't
Yeah.
want
There's nothing wrong with a Christmas ham. Christmas ham's nice.
You
What
wouldn't
you
have
wanna
it over turkey.
Turkey's like a less good chicken. If I could just have a really massive chicken.
Sure, I guess.
like a big roast chicken. But it's a chance to do something else, isn't it?
I guess. Yeah.
Have a nice big beef Wellington or
Oh,
I had
beef
goose one time,
Wellington.
which was fancy.
Oh, Robco beef Wellington. Oh.
Yeah, it's already named after a person. You can't
Yeah,
steal
you
it back.
Can't steal that brand.
And presumably, I'm guessing that
I could still make a Wellington, but like fill it with Robco beef. That's still allowed.
Camping.
See, Earl Grey, his name's Grey, but the Duke of Wellington is a place, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think-
I'm guessing a beef Wellington is named after the Duke of Wellington, which is therefore named after Wellington.
But is that one of the ones where he didn't have anything to do with it? It was just like someone called it that to honour him or something. Like, did he invent that specifically?
Yeah, it's not like the Earl of Sandwich, right?
Yeah.
Invented as. And Sandwich is a place, presumably, or multiple
Yes.
places.
But what if it was like a spoon beef Wellington? If I was to use my glacial spoon moniker, because I don't think Rob beef sounds very good, and I'm not
So
sure
you're going to
I'm
be
not sure.
eating this with a spoon, are you?
Not sure Kemp beef. No, spoon beef. No, yeah, spoon beef would be more of a brisket, I suppose, because you probably could eat that with a spoon. Spoon beef.
We maybe not talk about food.
Okay. You want to switch to video games for some reason? Can't think
or
why.
anything else.
It's not like that's like the theme of this podcast.
Podcast
In any
about video
way.
games.
It is.
We have to make sure we say that at least once. Every episode.
What's going on with video games?
I
What's
mean,
going
we
on
can
with-
still talk about like why I'm not at Rob's house.
Oh
In case
no!
you're
What happened?
interested at all.
Yeah, what'd you do? What'd you do?
It's not actually interesting. Well,
Okay.
it's kind of weird, but like somehow, and like I really do mean somehow, I managed to like bruise my tailbone
Oh no!
like really badly.
Bruise it.
Did you know?
Like
That's the sort of thing that
There's
happens
no-
when you slip down the stairs, right?
yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's like a falling injury, except that didn't happen. It's just like somehow
You haven't been sleepwalking, have you, or something?
not that I would think would be possible in our house. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's just. So I'm also currently attempting to stand up through most of this podcast as well.
Oh,
because I thought that
interesting.
might help.
Ah, standing desk style.
Yeah, is it just excessive sitting? I don't know that happens though, unless you're
Well,
sitting at
you'd
a
hope
really
not.
weird angle.
Yeah. But yes, it has been annoying this week where it's just like, well, obviously I want to be sitting at my computer, but I can't so much. Well, actually, it's one of those really annoying cases as well where it's like, as long as you don't move, it's fine. But as soon as you do move, it's like, ah!
So, what's your preferred position? Standing or lying on bed?
Yeah, I've mostly been taking more lying down breaks.
Okay.
standing up doesn't really work at my desk for doing anything at my computer because like the viewing angle from the monitor when I'm standing up is terrible and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, but does this
I
mean
can't even like watch a video very easily. I can stand further away from my computer and watch a video, I guess.
Does this mean you can just whip out whip out the Switch a little more?
Yeah, need a Steam Deck at this point.
I don't want like holding up the Steam Deck in portable mode is also not like super comfortable long term either. Really,
No. Probably good for your arm muscles, but but yeah, not very convenient.
So that's why I'm not at Rob's.
And the answer is you don't really know why. You're not at Rob's.
It's very annoying.
Something happened.
I mean, Gnome's not been super well this week. With like a chest infection. She sounds very funny though. Show some sympathy.
Does she sound really like
it's super croaky, like like a 10-pack a day. It's
wow,
it's
sexy.
Every now and then she tries to sing a note, and it's like nope, can't do that. It's quite funny. But no, it's a horrible because don't get chest infection. Don't you have a bad cough and all that? Yeah.
No, chest infections are not fun.
But she managed to pull a Zach and like wake up with a really bad shoulder and arm like one night, and she's like, "How did I do that?" Probably Badger's fault. Probably sleeping weirdly, like with the little one.
You have to lie down with the child, on the couch or whatever.
Yeah,
doesn't help.
Probably some odd scenario like that, but. Yeah, just managed to balk her shoulder up for a bit. Now known as that's what Zach should be named after. Like, there we go.
Injuries.
Give your name to a particular type of arm and shoulder injury because you've had so many of those, randomly. Unexplained shoulder pain. That's a Zachism. No.
And speaking of other randomly annoying
Zacchiasis? No, that sounds more diseasey.
Just to continue the random section slightly longer. It was Black Friday, obviously, and I was ordering shit on Amazon.
Was there actually any... I'm skeptical there's any actual good deals on Black Friday anywhere.
I mean, it depends how you feel about cdkeys.com. There was relatively decent deals on Game Pass and some games.
That's still a thing, CD keys?
Yeah, CD keys. Still about. Yeah.
But I was ordering some shit off Amazon, and they did the annoying thing where, like, I'm sure usually when you order stuff off Amazon that has, like, what you call it, like, delivery restrictions or whatever, they split up the package. But this time, everything has just got dumped into the latest package. So I ordered stuff in, like, Black Friday, and it's not going to turn up until mid-January.
What? Wow.
So lucky I wasn't buying Christmas presents.
Yeah. Oh, crap. Jeez. What are you getting?
A monitor.
What'd you go for? That's the important discussion.
I don't even remember.
All right.
It's a Dell, I think.
Is it? What's the Dell have a? Dell do have a like a gaming brand. Is it like? Is it?
I'm not sure if it said the brand.
Is it Elite?
The only thing about
is
it is
what they call it? Dell Elite.
I don't think it's an Elite. Well, it might be actually. But the only thing about it was like I want a monitor that has G-Sync, so I can actually use my graphics card properly. Basically,
most of them do though now, right?
Well, you'd be surprised.
Not most, but a lot.
Oh, or FreeSync or whatever.
Well, but FreeSync is the AMD.
Yeah, it depends what tier of G-Sync you want to go for as well, right? Like, because there's G-Sync compatible, which I think FreeSync falls into that camp, kinda. G-Sync compatible, and then you get full on G-Sync, which is the ones that have like the chipset on board in them, right? I forget what they call that.
That's got to be pretty rare.
And it does add a hefty price. It does add a noticeable uplift to the cost.
It was quite mysterious that this monitor, like the one that I ordered, is like FreeSync and G-Sync.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Compatible or full.
Yeah.
But then, like, the next tier up, which was like 400 quid more or whatever that I didn't buy, doesn't have G-Sync any longer.
Oh.
Like, it only has FreeSync, which is weird.
That is weird. I think NVIDIA cards will work with FreeSync, because it is even though it's AMD backed, I think the whole point of FreeSync is that it's platform agnostic.
I mean, realistically, the only hope is that it will just be better in general than my current monitor, which won't be that hard. It will have more resolution and higher refresh rate regardless, for sure. It will probably also be bigger.
You know that little bug that crawled and died into my screen? It's still right in the middle
Yeah.
of the damn screen. It hasn't
Oh, no.
hasn't gone anywhere. Hasn't decomposed or anything noticeable. It's just right there, just staring at me, dead center. Could almost be a crosshair.
But yes, that monitor was the one part of that package that's delaying it until January. Like all the other stuff got grouped into that.
They got new monitors at my work. Some. And I haven't replaced all the monitors in it because they were pretty shitty, to be honest. The ones in our because I work from consultancy, and so we have our office, but we mostly work at a client's offices often or at home. But the ones in our own office were pretty crappy. It's quite a nice office, but the monitors were bad, and everyone was complaining for literal years. And now we've organised getting some new ones, but they're like every other one maximum. But they're like 4K, but they're not very big compared to the one I'm used to at home, which is like ultra wide and curved. And interestingly, my current client has like wide monitors, but they're not curved. But they're pretty high, they're pretty good. But it's a bit weird looking at a wide monitor that isn't curved. And not that my current one is like extremely curved, like some of the gaming,
like the Samsung ones.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's just a subtle one, but it does help. But anyway, the ones in the new ones in the office, they're not very big. They're normal sized, I would say, and certainly the normal aspect ratio. But they are 4K, so the dot pitch is just nicer. And now I'm looking at my nice big monitor at home, and it's not quite, the text just isn't quite as crisp, as those ultra high.
I know what you mean. I still don't think 4K for a PC monitor is necessary. Like,
it's for the text, for sure.
I'm pretty happy with 1440p as a desktop monitor res. Like, I don't have a desire to go higher there. For a TV, absolutely 4K all the way. But for I don't believe in 8K. I don't think that's a necessity at all. Don't do it. But
for me, the text was like instantly noticeable.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it is going to. Yeah, I get it. It is going to look better. There's no denying that. But yeah, it's not necessary. It's just nice. It's just nice.
But now I'm thinking, like, is there a monitor? And I think there is one that is, the equivalent kind of size as my one I have at home, my perfect one, but with a higher dot pitch. But the problem is that, first of all, they're very expensive. Obviously, this one is already. I was very lucky that I got this paid for by work in the first place. But also, I think the M1 MacBook Pro that I have can't power it.
Not enough.
The super big one. It could do a 4K display fine, but it can't do this like the really big one. But the new one is ridiculous. The M4 MacBook Pro that's current, just came out, is insane. I think it can power like 3 5K displays in addition to its own, through one cable or something ridiculous. But anyway, I think that would be that's the future. Anyway, same size, higher dot pitch.
It's weird that your office doesn't have good monitors, because my office kind of did the opposite. They had good monitors, or at least they did it on the hot desks, or my old desk, in fairness, before I started working from home, mostly thanks to COVID. And they had nice monitors on those desks, and they've downgraded them. And it's like, why did you do that? Those monitors were fine. I actually have one of the old monitors that used to be on my desk, currently attached to my setup. This Lenovo ThinkVision monitor. It's nothing special. It's a 1440p monitor, but it's actually reasonably good in terms of color recreation and stuff like that. And it doesn't have FreeSync or G-Sync or anything fancy like that, but I don't need that for a secondary screen. And it's fine. But yeah, they got rid of all of them, and it's like, why did you do that? So every time I go into the office to sit at what is essentially a hot desk now, because I'm not there enough to really lay claim to a spot.
To a desk, same.
So when I am there, it's like I'm on these which are pretty pants 1080p monitors, and it's like I can get by with 1080p. It's okay, but they are the quality of them is notably lacking. Like if I was to do any want to do any color work on them. It's not that I do. That's not really my job particularly. But if I was to try it, those would not be the screens to use.
I think with my
it's just
laptop,
weird.
like,
It's just, why did they do that? Like, I don't.
1440p is like minimum for me. I think I wouldn't even bother plugging into a 1080p monitor. I'd just use my laptop.
It is. Yeah. There is. Yeah, 1080p does feel too low to do dev work now.
Yeah. So what are you getting, Zach? What resolution? Not that matters. Is it 1440p?
It is just a 1440, yeah.
Yeah, but it's G-Sync. Yeah. Well, that's good if it's good quality.
Max refresh?
I think it's like 165, maybe.
Oh, cool. So like mine. Yeah. It's a good rate.
Is it LCD or what's it? OLED? Or is it...
I think it's still an LCD. It's not an OLED, that's for sure.
But it's...
I mean, high refresh OLEDs are pretty rare and very expensive. High refresh IPS is not so
IPS,
bad.
That's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, I think it is IPS.
Yeah, okay. So my monitor's got a healthy amount of IPS glow on the left edge now.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. Like mine's only an Asus Tough Gaming. It's a Tough Gaming is like their budget line as opposed to ROG, right? Republic of Gamers. It's their lower tier. But this monitor's like, it performs pretty well, but I think the longevity of it might be lower than any other monitor I've had. Like, problems have crept in over the 3-ish years I've had it. So, buy everywhere, I suppose. Maybe if you go for a budget brand, the longevity's not going to be there.
Well, I don't even remember how expensive my current monitor was, but, that's lasted as long as my previous computer has, more or less.
Right, yeah. And I think my old Samsung 1080p monitor, the one that could do 120 hertz, which I bought with the intention of not only doing 120 hertz, but to do 3D. Remember when that was a thing?
3D monitors.
Yeah, that's still going. That lasted, and there was no problems. No problems crept into that, and I had that friggin' ages.
Yeah, it's like really the only reason I even considered buying this monitor in this Black Friday period because of Black Friday, but is because the problem with this monitor and my new graphics card is it doesn't seem to be able to maintain VSync at all. Like, even if you turn VSync on, it still tears.
Oh, that's really strange.
Oh,
yeah,
that's bad.
But the refresh rate on this monitor has always been kind of sucky. I mean, it's maximum 60 for a start, obviously.
Sure. But that's fine as long as you can maintain that, right?
Yeah, and you wouldn't have thought it would be a problem, but it just doesn't seem to manage it at all.
Weird.
So I'm like, maybe it's just time to just get a new one. just for a change, get ahead of the curve a little bit.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for it to be completely
to completely die, yeah. There was one monitor we found
4x3 monitor that I have sitting on the other half of my desk.
There was one monitor we found at work on one of these hot desk positions that didn't even have HDMI. It had VGA and DVI, and it's
that's what this 4x3 monitor has.
Yeah, it's like
ancient, and this must be. I don't even know how old this other monitor is, and also it's not plugged. This one literally can't plug into my computer because it is only like DVI or whatever. But that's my monitor that's plugged into my old PC in case I need to access it still. So I get to look at that PC for a 4x3 window.
Ooh, yeah.
How weird.
How vintage does that feel?
Well, by the way, the reason I know about that old perfect monitor, that I was talking about, is from that Dave's Garage channel.
Oh, right. Is he got it?
Yeah, of course. And the more you watch that channel, so for viewers, listeners, it's a guy who used to work, he's got a YouTube channel, but he used to work on Windows back in the day, like in the early 90s, right?
He wrote Task Manager.
Yeah, he wrote Task Manager, literally, because he wanted it for himself, so he made it and they shipped it. So and it's basically the same today, Task Manager.
Pretty much, yeah.
Anyway, but so he's cool and explains things in a good way, but he's totally retired, right? So he's just making a YouTube channel essentially for fun. And it's getting popular, I can see. There's a good video on the explanation on what was that disaster? The CrowdStrike Falcon disaster. Yeah, so that's a good one. I think he got some popularity from that. But like the more you watch it, you realize how subtly, like he's talking about tech topics, but you realize how hilariously wealthy he is. Obviously, from being a Microsoft engineer at the LAD, he must have had stock or something because he's got like the best of everything imaginable. It's one of these. You look at Americans sometimes, and it's like obviously there's a lot of what do you call it, inequality in American society, but the middle class or the upper middle class are like hilariously wealthy, basically. And so he's got the best of everything, so whatever it is. So the monitor was just one thing. Then you look at like what car he drives and his wife drives and his whole family or whatever. It's really funny.
One assumes that he might be a little bit less wealthy once the tariffs kick in.
Let's not talk about politics again.
I know.
We can move on to video games.
Yeah, I just had to
I think if anyone's not going to be affected by it, it's him. Right?
Yeah.
People like him.
The thing is like, not to talk super on politics, but there is some question mark over how this affects video games, right? And the
Switch 2 launch, it could affect, right?
Because and all electronics, right? Because it's just, like nothing is made in the US. It's not. It's not possible.
Not nothing, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but like that.
But electronics-wise, that's true.
Almost.
Although
nothing,
they are desperately building chip factories, aren't they?
Well, they're trying to, but didn't Intel get like slightly screwed over because they got given they were going to be given a big grant to build a chip factory on US soil that was then significantly reduced. And so they're
my
like,
impression is
what?
Like, they are being built, but they will take 10 years to come online, basically.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the closest America has, right, is it the gigafactories for Tesla and stuff like that, or the battery tech
batteries, aren't they?
Yeah,
but they don't have chip foundries like
no.
the one, the one in Taiwan, right? TSMC. It's interesting because the machines are designed in like some Nordic country, aren't they? They're designed in like Finland or something, but they only exist, physically exist in this one factory in Taiwan, right? The ones that do the ultra fine lithography or whatever it is to make the minimum nanometer process chips or whatever.
Yeah, it is nuts. I mean, this day was always going to come in some ways. It's like that's what happens. Outsource everything, get screwed by them eventually, or someone will screw you up. Anyway, whatever. But anyway, the big thing is obviously for gaming. Obviously, nothing electronics wise is made in the US. Therefore, all import. Like, what is the play going to be? Are imports of PlayStations, Xboxes, and Switches and what have you? Are they going to go up, but only for the US market, or
Unlikely.
the more likely outcome is that they'll try and spread that cost globally.
Indeed,
which is bad news for us in the UK.
Everyone, basically.
I mean, we might manage to get the Switch 2 before the tariffs hit, I guess.
I mean, it's not looking likely, because I'm the reason I know that is because I'm part of a kickstarted board game, and they already know that they're going to get affected by the tariffs for shipping, just for shipping, mind you, but for shipping the game to the US because it's being made. It's being made in China because everything's made in China, and they were quite upfront about the costs involved. Right, it's like if we could make it in the US, but it would be somewhere in the region of 4 to 10 times higher manufacturing costs, which is still higher than what it would be to get it imported through tariffs. But we didn't consider that at the time of the Kickstarter had begun. So all of this.
I mean,
so they might get, and they've decided they're just going to absorb that cost, which means that I feel bad for this guy. He's for those full disclosure, it's back a game called Deep Regrets. That sounds pretty cool. It's about it's about fishing in the post-apocalypse,
nice.
and maintaining your sanity throughout as you catch weirder and weirder things. It's a sort of balancing act game, which sounds kind of cool. But I think he was a composer on something, the game maker of this. Anyway, he's got a link to video games. Anyway, so he's he's just been very upfront about this whole thing, and he's going to absorb the cost for his board game, which probably means it's not going to make any money as the result of all of this, which sucks.
I mean, that does suck if that's really going to be the case. But imagine how many people will be in that position.
Yeah.
But like, we still don't know. I mean, I know he's crazy or whatever, and he being the administration or whatever, incoming US administration, I guess.
And they always keep saying like day one or whatever, but that's just like, that's not how that actually works.
No.
Even if you're super hardcore and want to do the thing, most of the stuff doesn't happen on day one.
I mean, some things can be done with executive orders that do take immediate effect, right? But not a lot of things require the legislation to go through. But like, some people think it's a negotiating tactic, right? Where you threaten massive tariffs, and
I mean that's what tariffs actually are anyway.
Yeah.
It's just usually there's also like the ones that you actually have to apply.
But there's applying them, and even threatening to apply them can, have an effect almost as big as actually applying them. So it's very hard to tell what's going to actually happen.
Because you could potentially like just continue to threaten to do it for months and months.
Yeah, I mean, he was supposed to build the wall, didn't he? What happened to that?
Partially
That's
built.
a slightly different problem.
Didn't really build it, and then they voted it back in anyway.
So that's more of a physical world problem rather than a financial problem.
Time to build issue, surely.
I guess so. They didn't get that far in those 4 years, did they? I don't know. Didn't seem to help. Anyway, US politics. But tangentially related to video game news.
That's all. Should we do some news?
Yeah, what's going on?
News! None of it good. Get your depression hats on. Is it? What is a depression hat? Maybe that's what we lend our names to.
Never take that off, to be honest.
Video games continue to be in a somewhat bad state. Let's weirdly, even though there's good games about. Let's talk about Lego Horizon Adventures first of all. Let's go on a Sony riff for a while. Apparently, according to Push Square, Lego Horizon Adventures is currently performing worse than Concord in terms of PC adoption. Yeah. Their peak player base has only been 602 on Steam, which is like not 602,000, 602 total. But that's peak players. That's not total sales. I should point that out. But that is incredibly low. And obviously, this doesn't factor in the PlayStation release and Switch release. And it's a holiday title, so maybe things will pick up for Crimbo. But that is an incredibly poor opening. I don't know. To be fair, I knew it was coming out. I didn't know when it was coming out. I didn't feel like there was a lot of like, and it's out now, like hoo-ha about it. It doesn't seem to have, I don't know, it just seems to have just quietly gone, yeah, you can buy it now. Do you want it? Do you want some Lego?
Horizon Adventures.
The red-headed minifig, and then some
I
Robo Dinos.
I just had to go look at the Steam store page to see, but requires third-party account PlayStation Network.
Oh,
so,
snap! And we know how
might contribute somewhat.
We know how PC players feel about that.
Yep.
Oh no! Well, there you go.
Might have caught a bit of the Helldivers remains.
Yeah, possibly. Does maybe a little soon. Maybe that was Concord's problem as well. I don't know. Maybe that contributed to Concord.
Yeah, but at least. Well, no. I mean, in Concord's case, it's sort of an equal situation with Helldivers. But like in Lego Horizon, it's just like, I mean, technically it has multiplayer, I guess, but it's not like a multiplayer game.
Sure. Is this really a problem if because you kind of have to do this as well for some Ubisoft games and probably all EA games, right? You have to sign up to...
Well, that's because they're still downloaded, like you can download them through Steam, but it's still just technically launching their launchers in the background.
Right, yeah. But how is this different from that? Like, it's a Sony account rather than an EA account. Yeah.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of is it.
Yeah, I don't know why Sony. I'm not 100% sure why Sony have grabbed so much ire for this compared to everyone else. And in the Helldivers case, right, that was because they changed it after the fact, and I can see why that's annoying. But for these that are just up front, maybe that's less of a problem.
I mean, there is the thing that everyone said during the Helldivers time was just like Sony gets their shit hacked all the time, but that's not really that unusual for any company, really.
Yeah, that is a very good
point. About more cases where it's happened with Sony.
Well, you kind of they should disclose it, right? That's the whole GDPR thing, right? Whenever there's a problem. But yes, Sony haven't got the best track record for that. They're probably just a bigger target, to be fair. Like, that's probably why they don't have such a good big track record. It's probably nothing to do with their tech. They're just bigger than Xbox.
And also maybe it's just a fact of, like, because Sony is relatively new in the PC space, like, everyone's just given up complaining about Ubisoft and EA and their shitty launches. But Sony are now trying to tie you to a PlayStation account and they're new, so maybe we can complain at them a bit more.
Yeah. In fairness, I don't think Xbox gets super. Do they have what does Microsoft do on this front? Because I've never bought a Microsoft Steam game. I don't think that's not games for Windows. God.
Well, yeah, I don't know how it works now.
Yeah, what happens if you bought like Forza Horizon through Steam? Right? Do you still have to sign into a Microsoft account to play it, or does it just work because it uses your Steam account? I don't actually know. They must make you sign up, surely, to get crossplay and stuff like that. Anyway, there's that. That's going on. Anecdotally, I was in John Lewis the other day, and I did notice, and a few other places, and I did just notice just how little attention Xbox gets in retail stores. It is so skewed. Like, not even a little. It's not like the old. I guess I feel like the old days, or even like the last gen, there was like a 50-50 split between like his Xbox content, his PlayStation content, but it's just not like that anymore. It's like it is so PlayStation skewed.
But do you think that's at this point, do you think it started out relatively equal and this happened because selling better and there's more?
Yeah, I guess it's probably like, a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Retailers have just said, no, we'll give PlayStation more space. It sells better. And it's like, and that leads to PlayStation selling better.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
So, yeah. I just found it weird a little bit. It's like, oh, look at these Black Friday deals on PlayStations. It's like, oh, we've got an Xbox over there. If you want it.
If you want it. Don't know why you would.
Just as good. Anyway.
I mean, they're certainly just as good in terms of the money closing up, in terms of the hardware, etc.
Probably cheaper than PlayStations now. I don't actually know, but
probably because
I did see that PlayStation was having some Black Friday deals on new PS4s, but the PS5, sorry, not PS4s, but they weren't that big a discount. I didn't think it wasn't enough to push me over the edge. I think I'm holding on for Switch 2 at the moment rather than PlayStation. So
yeah, you got your Steam Deck as well.
Yeah, covers me for most things I want to do at the moment. Although I do still really want to play Ragnarok and Spider-Man 2 and do it on a PlayStation because my PC is not good enough for that stuff.
If I were you, I'd be like, galled or like we talked about this, didn't we? I'd be tempted to get the Pro, but it's so expensive that it's stupid.
No.
So it's like off-putting. But then it's like then you have to buy the base, and it's like the base is obviously clearly good enough for everyone.
Well, there's
me and you, it's like I'm gonna have the best, clearly.
Yeah, I wasn't going to talk about it. There was a report that the PS5 Pro, like some games that are adapting to PS5 Pro, aren't adapting well.
Yeah,
like the recent Digital Foundry thing on Jedi Survivor,
PSSR, right?
Yeah,
it's all about this PSSR, like
pisser,
proprietary, the pisser. Yeah,
I listened to that Digital Foundry podcast when that was announced and stuff like that, and they just couldn't help but call it pisser constantly. Just.
Did I tell you about the first software I worked on professionally was Oh, actually, there was a news story the other day. So it was actually defence. It was Thales.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, it was a military drone for the British Army.
Mm.
And I just heard the news like last week that it's so shit that they're retiring it. The drone, the watchkeeper drone.
Good work, Dan.
Piece of shit. Yeah, it wasn't me. Anyway, but like in NATO terminology, so they have like standards, you know, like a British standard or ISO international standard. They have military standard. It's called STANAG, right? Is the NATO standards. So there's a STANAG standard for like bullets and guns and all kinds of things. But like one of the terminology is that like basically video surveillance or reconnaissance video is called primary imagery, and like stills, like photographs, are called secondary imagery.
Mm-hmm.
So they were working on a thing to stream the video feed. So it was, and it was going to be called the primary imagery stream server.
No!
But everything's an acronym in military. So yeah.
Well, at least it's not the NAF forces.
Yeah, the NAF forces. That's true. Oh God.
Oh no.
Do you want to try and explain the NAF forces, Zach?
Not really.
No.
The oldest of our in-jokes, probably.
Where were we at? It was like we were in the Birmingham Exhibition Centre, National Exhibition Centre, for a Tomorrow's World exhibition, I believe. And Tomorrow's World was the BBC TV programme about future technology that stopped probably.
Oh, shit, was this the year I was there as well?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
This was the year Rob threw up in the car on the way.
Oh boy, did I!
Because we were reading Calvin and Hobbes in the back of the car and not looking out the window.
That was when I discovered that was a thing that I suffered from. Yeah.
And being a future technology fair for like children, I think I remember there being an N64 booth where you could play Wave Race. Was that right? Because that had just
I do not remember that.
I think I remember playing Wave Race for like 5 minutes. But there was like defense stuff there, and one was like BAE Systems. I think they had a booth for like, I don't know, the Eurofighter. They had that game Eurofighter 2000.
Oh right, yeah.
Do you remember that simulator?
I remember they had some very tiny LCD screens, and those were kind of like, what?
Right.
These are impressive. These are tiny.
But yeah, they took us as kids into this like weird fake Command and Conquer style like briefing, basically.
Yes.
Like and instead of being the Brotherhood of Nod, we were fighting the NAF forces for some reason.
NAF.
I don't know what it stood for.
It had like a projection table, right?
Yeah, I don't remember much about it, but like it was like a mock-up kind of fake general talking to you like it was Command and Conquer.
I do remember that.
So weird.
I remember
that's where our ancient in-joke came from with the NAF forces.
So now you know the NAF forces.
I also remember like that exhibition also had some very early 3D LCD screens, but glassless 3D screens.
Yeah. I think they had an exhibition for the Thrust SSC. I seem to remember.
Right.
I got a poster, which was the supersonic car, right? Or the
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is all flooding back a little bit.
What happened with the Bloodhound car or whatever? There was one successor to the Thrust SSC, right? But I don't know if it ever actually did it.
Is that the one Hammond crashed?
No. It wasn't it. There's like one bloke who was like an ex-RAF pilot who did all of them. His name's like Andy Green or something. And he's been going the fastest you can go in a car since like the 1980s or something. I say car, it's basically 2 jet engines strapped to a sled.
Yeah.
It's got wheels technically.
Still a car. I mean, but actually, is it? Should the thrust be going through the wheels for it to truly be a car?
I mean,
now we're going to talk about semantics again. Good.
Yeah. Welcome to semantics.
Honestly, yeah, I kind of think the thrust should go through the wheels for it to truly be a car. But yeah, it's for a wheeled land speed. Right? Yeah, it doesn't have to be a car, right? It's just some sort of vehicle that is in touch with the ground.
Does it? How much does it have to touch the ground, though? That's the question.
Oh, so if we like invented anti-grav,
hovercraft or a ground effect,
pod racers,
cheating. It's got to have one wheel on the ground. Can't be just flying very, very low in a fighter jet.
What if you're just dragging?
What if it was touching the ground, but you didn't actually? If it wasn't, none of the weight was on it.
Yeah, if you're just dragging like a ribbon behind you.
Well, no, the wheel would if it was just barely touching the ground, and then the wheel would just free rotate, but you weren't actually using that to support the vehicle at all.
But that did seem to be mostly the problem with the supersonic car, was keeping it from taking off, right?
You need a bunch of aerodynamics.
So presumably you could balance the aerodynamics so it basically had no weight on the ground, but was still touching.
That would probably be very dangerous.
It's got to have just enough downforce to keep it down, right? That's the trick.
When are we going to get... For some reason, I was like, when are we going to get the ceiling land speed record where you drive upside down?
Yeah.
No one does that. No one...
No, I know.
Big old... What's the biggest loop you can drive around?
Or the smallest loop you can drive around.
Well, the smallest loop must be easier, right? So you want a massive ass loop.
Well, no, because the smaller the loop is, the curve starts to affect the actual ground contact of the vehicle, right? You can't maintain the aerodynamics as good if the surface starts to become curved.
Maybe, but then it doesn't go round the loop.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's what is once you get to a certain smallness, it probably becomes actually more difficult than a huge loop.
Are we talking vertical loops here? Because a bit of me was just like Fatal Racing or something like that. Just an enormous bloody loop to loop.
Wall of Death.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's
Wall of Death is horizontal, but it's yeah.
You're talking Sonic style.
Yeah, vertical loop is obviously the hardest. You can probably do a corkscrew pretty easily in a car, regular car.
Maybe,
relatively regular car.
Maybe, but yeah, the forces to push you onto the surface must be really weird in a corkscrew. Surely that you drift to the side. Anyway, physics.
But then again, as we well know, you can skateboard and loop the loop, so
well, yeah,
should be a problem.
But that's what I mean. Those loops are really small normally.
Well, yeah. For a skateboard,
I just thought of video game news related. Yeah. Have you seen the Skate 4 progress? They seem to be making progress with development.
No, I haven't seen that.
It's looking quite nice.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
looking less like a tech demo.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly.
Like a game.
They've done some colouring in. They've added the occasional texture. But the mechanics of it, I'm sure you could probably skate around a loop to loop in that.
In other Sony news.
Yeah, that was Sony news.
There's more Sony news. In other Sony news, also in other Horizon-based Sony news. Remember that? We talked about that half an hour ago.
Not really.
Oh boy. There's another Power World on the scene, basically. There's another game that looks a lot like another game. Tencent are making something called Light of Motiram, or Motiram. I'm going to go with Motiram. That is so ripping off the Horizon aesthetic, it's unreal. The work, the picture and their key art they've shown, and even there is gameplay footage out there as well. Shows a red-headed protagonist in sort of tribal gear in an overrun world with mechanical animals. And it's a game that plays a little bit like Power World with a bit of Monster Hunter thrown in. It's oh boy, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Surely.
But what you said Tencent, but what does that actually mean? You mean because Tencent just owns a whole shit ton of random studios?
Yeah, I don't know what studio is working on this, but it's Tencent owned in some way.
Power World is still going strong, still making updates.
It's still all right. Well, that lawsuit hasn't ended, so the Nintendo lawsuit hasn't happened yet. So it's got time. So yeah, maybe that's the game plan here. Get something else out that rips off something else.
I mean, I don't think if we're going to compare it directly to the Power World situation, what is the mechanic that they're stealing? Because the art style is not, you can't sue for that.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Improved many a time.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like it plays like Horizon. I'll put it that way. It looks more like a Monster Hunter, but with some of your standard survival game trappings. Like, they show clips of you hitting a rock and numbers come off it, and you gain materials.
They're probably fine unless someone has a very specific patent about mining or whatever.
Yeah. What is the lawsuit you can have here? But yeah, boy, is there's the as I say, maybe you can't rip off an aesthetic, but they've copied pretty much everything they can.
I mean, I think robot animals is not even that much of a big deal.
Well, no, but it's the whole thing together. I think
Well, sure.
it is obviously derivative. I guess this is like if you did a knockoff of Fast and Furious or something and called it Quick and Angry. It's
Quick and Angry.
It's kind of that. Anyway, that's happening.
Speedy and Miffed.
My favorite detective duo. Shuhei Yoshida is leaving Sony after being there 31 years since the very beginning, basically, since the beginning of PlayStation. So that's kind of a big deal. Sorry.
Is it though?
I mean, he was kind of...
I think these are starting to fall into the category of not really news that people are getting old and retaring.
Yeah, kind of.
That's just going to happen a lot now.
He's not retiring. He's leaving Sony. Okay. So that's the thing about this news. He intends to still work in video game industry in some way.
He's just a random CEO somewhere, as they all do.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he has spoken... you might consider his more recent role as a little bit of a sidelining. He's kind of been heading up their sort of indie efforts, or Sony's indie relations, for the last 5 years. And he's basically said that's like, that was a sort of dream come true job. He's loved it, but it's still moving on. So maybe he didn't love it all that much. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I guess the last Mr. PlayStation is gone. So there's that. That is the end of Sony news. Studio closure time. There's quite a few of these. Two of them weirdly related to one another. Humanoid Origin has closed. Now, you might not have heard of these guys because they haven't actually put a game out yet. But it's interesting because it was fronted by Casey Hudson, the director of Mass Effect fame. This was where he moved to after leaving BioWare. And they were making some kind of sci-fi epic, as you might expect, from the director of Mass Effect. But they have been unable to keep their studio running because they can't get funding to continue working on the game. So that is a shame. It would have been interesting to see what they were up to, or for that to see the light of day. They must have been working on it for a while. So there's that. It's a bit of a bummer. I would have liked to see what that was. And Rock Paper Shotgun also reports that Mass Effect's writer... He went off and made his own studio called Worlds Untold. Right. And development on his studio, whatever they're working on, is also paused. Like he has it. Like it's the people.
Are they all going to work on their Amazon TV show or something?
Maybe, yeah.
They all got poached.
Maybe, yeah. It's weird, but yeah, both of their splinter studios are in trouble. Well, one is gone, and the other one's in trouble. Yeah, bad news for Mass Effect stuff, I guess. Equally bad, Tequila Works, the studio behind Rhyme, which I played a few years back and talked about on this podcast. They have also filed for insolvency. So if you want somewhat, what's the word I'm looking for here? An attempt at deep and meaningful indie game. I say an attempt. Rhyme was based entirely off the stages of grief, so they were really going for it. But yes, if you're into that sort of thing, shed a tear for Tequila Works. I liked Rhyme, so that's a shame. In other bad news, and this one's a bit more close to my heart, I guess. This comes from Games Radar. The news that what's it called? The Video Game History Foundation have lost their court case in the US to try and get video games to have the same DMCA exemption rules as things like movies and books, so that video games can be have to be preserved for the purpose of research.
Right.
So they have lost their attempt to make that a thing, which, could be considered pretty bizarre, given that those liberties extend to books, they extend to movies, they extend to music to some degree. Why doesn't that extend to games?
They're going to say it's because of code, right? Like, a book is just a bunch of words, whereas a video game is like actual programming and code and stuff that is still proprietary.
Well, there's an element of that, I suppose, but when it's compiled, do you really have that? I get to some degree, but the takeaway quote that Games Radar picked out on here is that publishers were kind of involved in this lawsuit, because of course they were, saying no, we don't want that, and they came away with the quote, "Preserved video games would be used for recreational purposes," and it's like, well, no shit, but of course they would be a little bit
books and movies and music.
Like books and movies and music that you could get from, I don't know, your library. Like, how is this? Anyway,
it's not as if libraries don't have video games. I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah, so this is a really strange ruling. Well, and it just flies in the face of every other media form we have. That's the thing. It is different. It is it's somewhat baffling, basically, and disappointing, because it means publishers now have they don't, and it sets precedent, I suppose, is the worrying thing, right? So it's now it means there's very unlikely in the near future for publishers to be put under any kind of pressure to make sure their games are preserved in any way. So good on you, publishers. Your media is not safe. And you've probably just stoked the fire of the existing piracy efforts, if you even call retro gaming piracy. All you've really done is stoke the fire, I think. But I'm a bit worried that it might put organizations like Internet Archive under fire. Because they are because Internet Archive is a repository for a lot of this stuff, and it's like,
Indeed.
It's like, are they allowed to keep it in? Probably not. It's a bummer. It's a real bummer. As a retro game enthusiast,
I'm sure the fight's not over. It's got to be.
I hope not. I hope there's some other.
It'll come back around.
Yeah. I mean, we've still got The Crew lawsuit to happen.
Side note, whenever anyone uses the phrase, which is totally legit, and you used it just now, it flies in the face, I always think of it literally, where it's literally flying into their face. Whee!
Why are there flies in my face?
Just flies in the face of convention.
And finally, slightly lighter news that Xbox avatars, the current generation ones, they are being removed from the service due to lack of use.
The greatest thing Rare ever did after being bought by Microsoft.
So what happens if you boot up one of the Doritos games now? Or after this happens?
Actually, I don't know if... Oh, yeah, good point. Okay, so they would be fine because this only affects the current gen avatars. There is a split, right, in the avatar system. There's the Xbox 360 era avatars, and they're not going away for compatibility reasons. Whereas I don't think any modern game in the Xbox landscape uses avatars. No. The current gen ones, like, they're primarily just for your social page and maybe making you a gamer pick, something like that. And they're not actually really used by anything. So There have also always been buried away in the menus, right? They were never made front and center. Like, I don't think you get guided into making an avatar as part of the onboarding process on Xbox anymore. So, like, why would you have to go out of your way to make one? So why would you? So there we go. They will be going away. You won't be able to see my very bearded, because the beard options were either like no beard or massive beard. Like my very bearded avatar fold his arms and sort of shake his head a little bit, because that was one of the valid animations you could have. Like Grumpy Rob.
Presumably the avatar, like the image avatar versions are still going to stick around though, right? Because that JPEG is just there in the system.
I mean, I'm hoping my gamer pick doesn't change. I don't know why I would change it too, because it's not like gamer picks are... There used to be things you could unlock from games, right? And they would get added to your account and stuff like that. It's like, what do you even do now, like with those?
Like the Switch, where it's just like, wow, you can have Mario.
Yeah. That's much more limited on the Switch.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's what it's going to be like now in the Xbox land.
Yeah.
You can't use your own avatar. You're just like, here's the Xbox logo.
Everyone is
here's
Master
a picture of a controller.
Yeah. If they still had the IP, you could be those guys from Hi-Fi Rush. Like, I don't know what would you even have? A car. Except you wouldn't be able to have that because it'll be licensed. So the Forza logo.
Military guys from Call of Duty.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could. I guess you could have Crash Bandicoot now. That's the news. Like I said, none of it good.
Let's move on to more positive things, potentially.
You didn't want to talk about, any of the Game Awards or anything.
Has that happened yet?
Well, no, I mean the pre-awards time of this, where, everyone's having an uproar about a DLC being nominated for Game of the Year.
Yeah.
What, Elden Ring?
I didn't.
Yep.
Yeah,
That probably is Game of the Year, though, right?
I didn't really think about it, but like as newsworthy to something. I guess that tells you something, right? It didn't really register with me.
It is just a random outrage thing that these various award ceremonies always have.
Yeah,
for their shitty categories and all that stuff.
I mean, I think it is. I mean, if I was to put my oar in, yes, I kind of agree. I do think it's stupid because it's. And I wouldn't say it's a significant extension to Elden Ring, but it's not a game-changing extension to Elden Ring. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
Sure.
I don't feel like it's fundamentally a game in its own right. It's enough content to be a game, sure, but it's not a game. And so adding it in this category feels cheap. And just another way to be like, well, let's celebrate Elden Ring some more. That was like, that was great, wasn't it? It's still great, isn't it? It's like, yeah, we know, we did that.
But you know what this means? It's like, I'm going to have Factorio be Game of the Year again.
Woo!
Space Age Game of the Year.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm outraged, but I do think its inclusion is slightly odd. This is similar to, like, was it last year? There was the Dave the Diver thing, right? That was
in the indie category.
Yeah, it's like it's an indie game. No, it's published by Square. It's an indie game.
I mean, why is there not just a category for DLCs where they're just not enough to fill a category? And they were like, we need to shove this into some other category.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean,
or do people just not even care about DLC as a concept any longer?
Or is that a thing you can't necessarily get critics to all be invested in and all have knowledge of? You're like, can their panel all be up on DLCs?
Well, I mean, as if this is like, as if we're going to put any like actual rigor into the idea of reviewing this shit. But like, how would you even define a review of the DLC for Elden Ring? Because you have to completely remove your preconceptions of the base game or something.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? And also, it's like I think if my understanding is correct, which it might not be because I've not played Elden Ring, I think you have to be like quite a way into Elden Ring before you can even have access to this thing.
Well, sure, yeah.
You can't separate it.
Yes, it is just kind of dumb, obviously, but
Mm.
not. That's the random outrage for this year's Game Awards, I guess.
Yeah. Somewhat irrelevant. The Game Awards haven't been about the awards for forever.
No, it's always been dumb, more or less.
I mean, the other thing, like I've noticed people being a bit more annoyed about is like people are finally cottoning on to that doing the Game Awards early December-ish is a bit of a mistake because it doesn't mean people have time to tackle the end of year releases.
Yeah.
And so they don't get included. Like in particular, Dragon Age Veilguard has been called out as something that like couldn't be nominated. And so as a result, like does that fall into next year's conversation? Frequently it doesn't. And that's a problem.
People just forget.
Yeah. So maybe they should do this late December or maybe next year, maybe early next year.
Maybe they should do it in January, like after the year is done.
Yeah. If they care about the awards bit, which obviously they don't. Not really.
No.
Not really.
And here's my other random couple of bits of game-related news.
It's time for the Zach minute.
Yep. Take-Two have now sold off all of that branch of their stuff that was related to Kerbal Space Program 2. That sub-studio or whatever. All of that got sold off. So that includes like the IPs. So
interesting.
Now Kerbal Space Program 2 is in the hands of someone somewhere.
Oh, so they haven't told us who it is?
No, it's just sold to a person, as far as we know.
A person?
Well, whatever that means, in auction terms. It's sold.
It's sold. Interesting. What does that mean for the future of Kerbal Space Program 2?
I'm pretty sure it means it's not going to have a future at all.
No.
Unless it has been sold to, like, some indie devs who have just picked it up and, like, we're going to make Kerbal Space Program 2 now.
Yeah, are they coming at it just like, well, we might as well. You were fucking this up, so we'll have a go.
Because I think there's I don't remember what the lineage is of the people involved in this, but there's another. I think they're somewhat related to Kerbal Space Program original, but like they're making Kitten Space Agency at the moment, which everyone seems fairly enthusiastic about.
Okay.
For being a replacement for Kerbal Space Program in the like semi-simulation space travel thing. Although people are having a disagreement on whether Kittens is good or bad. Like, you don't mind killing Kerbals, but you probably mind killing kittens.
I mean, maybe that's the point. Maybe it makes you care a bit more about not building death machines.
But you don't want the care. That's the whole point of Kerbal Space Program. The fun is making shit that explodes all the time.
Wobbly ships.
And then the other bit of very vaguely game-related news is there was a new trailer for the Minecraft movie. Has it improved at all? Kind of.
Kind of?
I haven't seen it yet. I did know there was a new one, but I haven't watched it yet. There was an article on Kotaku about how apparently the makers and test screenings kind of agree that first trailer doesn't show what the film is really like. I mean, surely the visuals can't change all that much.
Yeah, you'd think so.
But so if you've got a problem with that, maybe you're in trouble. But structurally, the trailer did a bad job of conveying how the scenes play out. Which is, trailers.
Yeah. I would say this new trailer does much better.
No, really.
But and the green screen is still terrible as far as I'm concerned. There's one particular of those shots where the four characters are running away from a big enemy, running towards the camera, but then it doesn't seem like the green screen lines up and they slide apart or whatever. It's that classic trying to simulate running towards the camera effect.
Well, that seems weird.
It just doesn't seem like it's done very well.
That sounds like a solved problem these days with proper visual tracking.
Yeah. But yeah, that new trailer is still not. It still hasn't won everyone over. That's for sure.
I mean,
and also Jack Black makes a goddamn meme reference, as you do. The children yearn for the mines.
I can stay. That's fine.
Yes, but that's not going to be the only one. That's the problem.
Yeah,
putting that sort of meme directly into the trailer, there's going to be goddamn more of them.
There's still room for things like the VFX to be finished, right? Because that's apparently that's what the test screenings have been. They've been, the VFX for some of the shots that were in these full run test screenings wasn't complete yet. So they're they are still working on it. So maybe shots like that from the trailer will get tightened. But why include it in the trailer if it's not ready yet? I mean, it's not unheard of, right? It happens a fair amount that trailers go out with incomplete elements.
Yeah.
I was reminded, what is it? The last Spider-Man film, the one with the 3 Spideys in. There was clearly something like there's one shot where they basically had edited out something, right? Or they hadn't finished the work for it yet, and so there was.
But wasn't that was actually like for spoilers though, right?
Yeah, I can't remember if that was
characters from the trailer, but like their physics was still happening to the other things in the scene or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That was what I was thinking of. Like, was it purely spoiler related, or had they just not finished that element yet? I don't know.
I think it was probably spoiler related.
Yeah,
just a bit of a weird decision. Yeah. Anyway, that's the end. That's the actual end of news.
It's time for what you've been playing.
I'll watch that Minecraft movie if it comes out. Maybe not in the cinema, but probably I'd give it a watch. Who's been playing what then?
I don't know. What have you been playing?
Me? Let me take you through a journey of not much new. I've carried on playing Starlink quite a lot. My plan of just picking it up and seeing what this is like and then going, no, I'll come back to this later, didn't really pan out. No, I've kept playing it. To the point where I noticed the digital collection packs were 70% off during Black Friday. So I could actually expand the game to have the content that is that it probably should have had. It's Starlink is a weird experience because it is clearly compromised by its toys to life structure, and the fact that you could have anything at any time if you had the physical items involved, as a make good, I suppose, or if you've bought the digital versions of that, so you don't need the physical all the physical stuff. And I think I've most of my time has been with just the starter pack. I should point out on the Switch as well, so it's the Star Fox starter pack, so it's mildly cool. But
mildly.
But yeah, it's starting to become clear where in the game I am that there's increasingly things that I couldn't have done without the extras, without having, say, a stasis weapon type, so I can use that against gravity type, or vice versa. Right? It's starting to get to that point where there are certain combos and things in the world that I can't access because I don't have the things. And so I plumped for Collection Pack 1, which gives you a whole bunch of stuff across all of the different it doesn't have every weapon or every pilot or every ship or anything like that. There's still more on top of that, but it has at least all of the weapon types, so I could in theory experience what the game has to offer in full. And that creates its own weird little problems. So, story-wise, it's slightly strange because, the game starts with you being basically new to the star system, and then you immediately meet Star Fox, who are also new to the star system. But then, as you play through the game, you are encountering characters that you haven't yet met before. Right. Except if you have the stuff, you have met them before, because you can play as them. And so that doesn't really work. And there are characters that you could have the stuff for that seemingly just seem to be a part of the group who you've never met before in the story. It's where did these guys come from? Why is this guy talking to me over the radio? I don't know who you are. And it's like, but it's a thing I could have, I guess. So it's odd as a result. It's like if you know who the characters you could potentially buy are, then it somewhat makes sense. But it was really jarring to have one of the cutscenes involve a couple of characters that I had no idea were technically now part of the crew story-wise. Right. Like yeah. I knew who they were because I knew things they could buy, but they just suddenly turned up. It's like, why are they now part of our crew? You've just skipped over that whole thing. Like they're just now here. Or is there something I've done out of sequence? Like, it doesn't make sense. Is what I'm trying to say. Like it doesn't quite work. But what is here feels like it's tantalizingly close. If they were to just strip away this Toys to Life structure and make a regular ass video game out of Starlink, yeah. I think there is something good here. Like I'm enjoying my time with it quite a bit, and it's not because it's like super deep or anything. Like it is pretty simplistic. I talked before a little bit about how most of the game is actually hover tanky rather than space combat-y, despite its name. Because you're spending most of your time on planet surfaces, but I think it plays pretty well, and it's just nice to just go around. It's a little bit like a checkbox game at the end of a night for me. Like I can just pootle around a planet surface, checking off the things I haven't yet claimed for myself or claimed for the Starlink Alliance, and I don't mind that at all. Like it plays just fine for that kind of experience. Just go to a thing, shoot a few dudes, claim the thing. Job's a good one. Move on, do it again. I think it's probably going to start wearing thin a little bit after a while, but I've got plenty of new stuff to toy with now. Because that's kind of, and I'm starting to hit a number of surprise difficulty spikes.
Right.
Like the difficulty curve is weird. Like it's either like really easy or I'm dying in seconds. And I haven't quite got a handle on how the game is trying to indicate to me how things, how things scale. Because the only real level you have on screen is your pilot level. And you earn a pilot level every time they gain proficiency in either your current ship hull or the weapons attached to it. So yeah, you can gain if your pilot gains enough experience in a ship, your pilot gains a level. But if you swap them to a different ship, the game is tracking a different XP meter for them with that ship.
Okay.
But they do both add up to the same level score. Right, if you see what I mean. So there's if you stick to the same pilot but are swapping ships out, in theory you can level that pilot up more than one ship would allow, right? Do you see where I'm getting at with this? It's like it all kind of adds together. It seems to encourage sticking to a pilot as opposed to swapping pilots around. What I haven't figured out is whether or not, like, if you level a pilot, you get a point that you can put into a skill tree for that, that's specific to that pilot. But I haven't figured out as if that just increases your base stats at all or anything like that, because that pilot level is presented in this little square, right? This rounded edge square. And then when you see certain objectives on the maps and stuff, they are also presented with a number inside a rounded edge square. So I'm like, my assumption is like they're trying to tie the pilot level to the difficulty of the thing. But that doesn't necessarily reflect the level of the gear I have. And by gear, I mean they call them mods, which are like just basically stat boosts. So I can apply to both the hulls and the weaponry. And I don't, so where does the difficulty come from? I don't quite know. Or how does the leveling actually work? Is it should it be basing it upon the mods rather than my pilot level, or is my pilot level king? Because I'll run into some fights and just be like, I am hideously outgunned here. I am dying super quick. Like I discovered a tank thing, which I'd never seen before on one of the planets, which had some interesting mechanics. You actually have to turn your shields on and ram it to get the armor off it, and then you can shoot it through the holes. But that seemed pretty difficult, and this thing could basically ruin me. And is it another... Then my cynicism kicked in and was like, is this another way of making the toys to life system work? Because you don't really die in Starlink unless you've run out of stuff. So if I have the starter pack, for instance,
like physical stuff.
Yeah. So if I have the starter pack, for instance, I have, and I'm playing digitally, I should point that out. If I'm playing digitally without the physical thing, the starter pack gives you 2 ships. You get the Zenith and the R-Wing. If you run out of health on one of those ships, you can just swap in another one. So it's like, oh, my R-Wing's dead. No worries, I'll swap in the Zenith. Now my Zenith is dead, and that's all I've got. Balls, I'm going to have to respawn somewhere. Usually at the Equinox, which is like your home ship, which is friggin' miles away. So that's, a bad time. But now I've got the DLC, technically, you call it DLC, but I've got the ship packs. I've got a whole bunch of ships. So when I was fighting this tank, it basically tore through all of them, and I only managed to take this thing down whilst on my final ship. So was that the intent here? Is this a way of making the game easier because now I have more stuff? Like it feels odd, and slightly skewed perhaps towards you buying things. So it's
sure.
Yeah, I don't know quite what's going on there. But the worst thing about it was that tank was designated as a level 5, and my Fox pilot has a level 10 at this point. So in theory I'm over leveled for this fight, but it's still hard. And I'm finding the same problems where in the space fights when I'm come across like outlaw bases that are marked as like level 7, and I'm level 10. Like they still completely destroy me. So either I'm missing a trick gameplay wise, or there is something off about the difficulty here. And I wouldn't say this is like strictly taking me out of the game. As I've said before, I'm having a good time with it. It's just I'm not fully grasping what how it functions yet. And the game's still introducing where I am. It's introducing mechanics like I can take out these little hives of enemies and then build stuff myself on that spot. And if I build stuff myself on that spot, I know I can get the benefits I want out of it, and it slows down that planet's. There's a sort of semi-dynamic system going on where the planets in the system get infected by the Legion, and you can stay on top of it by going and dealing with the problem, or you can spend time on the planets to level up its own defenses so they get less things. So there's a sort of dynamic system in play, so perhaps it pays to go back, and it's starting to introduce more of those mechanics to me even now, even several hours in. All of this just makes me think, if they had another crack at it without the Toys to Life stuff, there's probably something pretty damn good in here. But it does suffer from the core design. I was just thinking about this, but I don't necessarily think that the physical Toys to Life is a good way to play this anyway. Imagine you had all the stuff.
Yeah.
And then you immediately get sort of like ripped apart by something you're trying to fight. It's like, okay, what am I going to do now? If I want to just swap my midship but keep my wing and weapon combo, right, I've got to take the wings off this thing. I've then got to take the ship off the base station. I've then got to put a new ship onto the base station and get it wedged onto there. I've then got to reattach both the wings myself. Then I've got to make sure I go back in. That's actually take a reasonable amount of time just to swap a ship out, unless you've got pre-made loadouts like ready to go and you just lift the whole thing off and put the whole thing back on. But it's not like just putting a Skylander on the pedestal, right, that it used to be. That used to be just like a boop, there you go, you're back in. This is more involved, so I'm not 100% sure the physical way to play is all that good.
Right, yeah. It's just generally might be better off if you remove the Toys to Life gimmick.
Yeah. Which makes me sad because they wouldn't do it. I don't think Ubisoft would go back to this because that was the whole point of this thing. That is Starlink. But I think you could just do it. You can just do it without. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And make sure you keep doing the Star Fox content because the Star Fox content is good. Like I should point that out. Whenever there is a bit of mission banter that involves you playing as Fox, and you have it's just pretty much all the time for me because why wouldn't I? But it involves the rest of the Star Fox crew and they're talking to each other. The writing is good. The writing is exactly what I want from that team. That dynamic is correct. They've done a good job with the Star Fox stuff. I'm not convinced there's a lot of it, but when you do come across it, it's nice. And it makes you want more Star Fox.
Naturally. Star Fox game makes you want more Star Fox. Yeah,
definitely. It doesn't help that in some ways, it's like it probably doesn't help that they put Star Fox in it, right? It just makes me all the more annoyed that there isn't another Star Fox game recently. So that's Starlink. I'm probably going to be playing. There's quite a lot of that left.
Starlink, did you say?
Starlink, yeah. There's quite a lot of that left, so I'll probably carry on with that. Yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it. What else did I play? I continue to play Cook Serve Delicious a little bit. I don't really have too much to add to that. I've only made a little bit more progression in it and unlocked some more complicated dishes to cook. So they're like finger gymnastics are a little more complicated. But I stand by original statement. I think the progression on that thing is far too slow. But it's fine for what it is. I think you can get an idea for so the achievements are like crazy high numbers as well. So if you're playing that, it's like, oh god, it really does want me to play a lot of this. What else have I been up to? I'm probably forgetting something, but I'm going to talk about something we've already talked about before, but something I haven't talked about before in that I played through all of Jusant.
Very good. I was hoping someone would, so we could have a comparison.
Yeah. This is Don't Nod's climbing game that Zach talked about earlier in the year. Yeah, I quite liked that. It's pretty good. Yeah. It's pretty good. I'm trying to think of how to add to what you already said. I think you covered a lot of it pretty well before. I ran into more problems with the walking around the world mechanics than I did the climbing mechanics, if that makes sense. The climbing mechanics are actually pretty well done and quite fun. And there's the odd occasion where doesn't reach out for a handhold quite where you think they should. It's like, oh, that's clearly in range. Why are you not going there? Only ran into that a couple of times. And I think there's an area in Chapter 3, and you probably know the one I'm talking about, Zach, as I mentioned that, where the route to take wasn't super obvious. I kind of knew where I had to get to, but the route to get there is more convoluted, I think, than any other part of the game.
Well, I'm not sure which one that would be.
There's like a windmill that's not functioning. And I could kind of see I need to get up on top of this building, and the route would be across the windmill. But actually getting up to the windmill, I couldn't really. It took me ages to see where the route was.
Oh right, that's the one that I was talking about, where it's the U bend where you have to not attach to the wall, right?
Yeah, there's a swing bit, right, and it's but there's two swing bits. I thought I could swing to the thing earlier than the game would let me, and it's...
Now that you've reminded me of it, I'm like, oh yeah, that did actually take me a while to realise it. It's like, oh, you just have to swing to that and then swing to that.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that's what I mean. I didn't see the second swing point or the route to it for friggin' ages. So I'm just like, what do I do? I kept trying to...
Obviously highlighted, there's no yellow paint on that ledge. It's just that it happens to be in a straight line from the plane of the windmill. That's how you're kind of meant to see it, I guess.
Yeah, and it was confusing that you couldn't, because you can't really see, you could only see one side of the windmill realistically there, and I couldn't work out why your character wasn't grabbing the side you can swing to first, and it's like this looks like the thing I should be doing. Why can't I do that? And it's like, no, because the game wants you to come at it from the other side. But anyway, yeah, I missed a whole bunch of the collectibles, which is annoying because most of the achievements are tied to the collectibles.
Well, I mean, what else are they going to have achievements for in that game, really?
Yeah, I got the story of Bianca letters done, but I didn't get all of the regular letters, and I didn't get all of the altars. I didn't get all of the cairns, so I didn't get any of those achievements, which is frustrating.
Well, at least it has a reasonable go back and do them thing.
Yeah,
tells you how many there are in each chapter and whatnot.
I mean, I wish that was a little better because there isn't sub points through the chapter. There's just from the beginning of the chapter. I think that needed subdividing a little bit, in its chapter select afterwards. Because basically, the way I missed stuff, I would have to play the whole game again. I missed enough stuff along the way.
You'd be able to do it much quicker.
Oh, sure.
Once you understand the mechanics, you can just be like, mash. And
yeah, I played through chapter 1 again, and it took me 25 minutes to get through chapter 1 again, just speed running it and getting a couple of letters that I missed. I suppose it might be a bit tricky to try and find some of the altars and stuff that are tucked away, usually through tiny little holes somewhere.
But that's what you need the vision for.
Yeah, but
that is super helpful.
But he doesn't find everything. That's the thing.
Well, I mean, the altars it will though.
Right,
about things you need to find.
Yeah, there was the one on chapter. I missed the one on chapter 5, I think, with the altars because it looked the other side of a wall, and it's like, okay, great, that's fine. I'll just we'll go around that in a minute, and then the next section was just a big old climb, and I'm like, bugger. That clearly wasn't the way to go. It's pretty nice. I mean, it's narratively fairly sad, but
well, yeah, obviously,
not just your your story is a bit mysterious. It's like what is it about you and your little friend that make it possible for you to solve the world and no one else could? Like it's all a lot of what's critical to the story is untold, which is sort of nice, but sort of not at the same time.
It is obviously just that you do have your friend, because how that ties into the whole story in the end.
And
it's just
glowing tattoo thing and the shell.
That might just
all
be
of that
coincidental.
the
shell is kind of that's just a convenient attachment. You just happen to have tattoos that glow because they're made of whatever that glowing paint that makes all the murals.
Yeah, which makes it seem like you're descended from someone who knows what's going on or something like that. But
you might be, but it's all just activated by your companion, obviously.
Kind of. But apart from the last one, he doesn't get involved. He doesn't echo the last thing. But
kind of.
He doesn't. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. It's a little strange in that respect. The why. How do you know to do this? No one else did.
Well, yes, I guess that is the one thing that is super unexplained. It's just where did you even come from at the start of the game?
Yeah.
It's just you just show up and start doing things.
And if the whole plot of the game is that there's no water, how does anyone live?
Well, they don't. That's kind of the whole tower is abandoned by the point you're reading all these messages, and they're all talking about the water is gradually going away.
Sure, but at no point,
where there's those old farms.
But at no point do you drink through it, and the Bianca.
You're only there for a day, right?
I don't know. Well, there's no. Well, that's the other thing, right? Time doesn't pass.
No, there's no time passing.
Yeah, time passes, but there's no day cycle, and that's story, right? That's actually world building. Yeah. I liked it.
But when Bianca's going up, it's still there's still water at that point.
Oh, is there? I thought that was sort of past that point because she lived down in low tide, right? Down the bottom and works her way up. And it's if she's down there and there's no water there, then.
No, at that point, there's no ocean, but there is still water.
Okay. There's still some in the
it's still
place.
coming down. They're talking about how what those other people they meet up with have to abandon their farm because the water's starting to dry up there.
Right.
And then as they're going further up, it's there's still some water, there's still clouds and whatnot. I mean, obviously there's still clouds even when you're there once you high enough, but they're looking for the thing that gives the water, that makes the water continue to flow. Because they go through the canal area, right? And I don't think they specifically mention whether there's still water in those canals at that point, but then you go into the big like reservoir cave or whatever. And it's sort of implied that that was where most of the water that was supplying everything below was.
Right, yeah, the basin, I think they called it. But anyway, spoilers for the story a little bit. But
Yeah, I guess.
not that that's really what this is. Like the narrative is all discovered; it's not told. I want to say, like even though it's got a fairly simplistic art style, I'm obviously playing on Series X, but the rendering quality really high. Like really high, like it's a very simplistic, almost flat shaded look at times. Like, you know, not overly textured, shall we say? But like the lighting quality, the way shadows are cast, I never saw that like shadow stepping.
Oh right, the
effect.
jaggedy edges.
Yeah, none of that was ever present. There's lovely depth of field stuff going on, especially during the like listening. You know, the shell listening thing you talked about before. It's a pretty, and it never stuttered. There was never a frame rate drop. There was never it's very well presented. It's like, you know, it's Unreal Engine doing what I guess Unreal Engine is very good at, which is quality, but they've able to ramp that quality right up because they're not using too much texture detail, too much polygons. Yeah, and it looks great as a result. Like it's I know it's probably not that difficult to that in modern era, but like when you get to the wind section and absolutely everything in the shot is moving, it's pretty cool looking. It's a good game. Jusant. You have to say it French, apparently.
Alrighty.
I think that's it.
Cool. What have you been playing, Zach?
I've only really been continuing to play the two things I was playing before. I played some more Mario and Luigi, getting further into that, I guess. It's very hard to tell how far through that game you are because everything is just like so sectioned off into like you just go to one of the islands and then you do the thing on that island and then you're kind of done with that island unless a side mission sends you back there for a minute. So because of that, there's like no real sense of like how far you are through the actual overarching story. Like you're trying to reassemble the continent, but how many of these islands are there? You don't actually have any idea.
Right. It's not
apart
like
from maybe how like full the map screen is, which is like obviously you have the map screen. It's like I guess there's probably about another 5 or 6 more islands, maybe judging by the fullness of how many islands there are on my map screen.
It's not like Thousand Year Door or something like that, where there's very clearly like, oh, we've got to complete the 5 points of this star. Or...
Well, I mean, kind of, because there's the sort of sea map where it shows you like the 5 different oceans, and you're like, well, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 islands per each of these or whatever. Although there have been like certain, I've had occasional like NPCs talking about stuff where it's like, oh, there's apparently secret hidden islands that aren't on any of the currents, so I wonder how you get to those. And I'm like, are they hinting at like there's going to be some kind of late game point where the island you're on becomes sort of able to traverse the world without relying on the currents, and then that's going to open up the map some more or something? It's like I can't really tell.
You mean a Wind Waker of sorts?
Yes, something along those lines. The infinite currents.
As opposed to endless raisins.
Yes. And, you know, it's doing the thing that this kind of... I don't know if this is a Mario and Luigi thing or just sort of a Mario RPG thing, even in general, where it's just like... Sometimes you're not really doing, you know, much RPG fighting or anything. You're just doing a weird thing on this island. Like the most recent one I've just done was like a sort of a detective island where you're going around trying to solve the mystery of who stole these fish eggs.
So it's sort of
a bit of fighting, but
so it's sort of following that. That's a Paper Mario thing as well, right? Isn't it? Where each area is kind of a different theme,
a
different
train
job.
in Paper Mario was the detective mission of that one.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's doing some of that. I guess the other indication of how far I may or may not have got through the game is like how many of the bros moves I've unlocked, and like as you level up, it's like every 10 levels there's a special like upgrade point where you get an additional bonus, and I'm approaching the third out of 5 or 6 of those, so like theoretically I should be like halfway through the game. But yeah, it's kind of hard to tell.
But are you enjoying it?
I mean, it's fine.
Oh, the mediocrity is deafening.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, as we kind of speculated, it's like they're not doing anything particularly new or complicated, or at least not yet. Maybe it's going to be super backloaded with that stuff. Because, like, I mentioned before when we talked about it last time, where it's like every attack is like a bros move now. Like, all of them use multiple button pushes on both characters to activate. But then now that I've started getting the actual bros moves, there's been no indication that they're going to do the thing that the old games did of having like the advanced mode, where like after you use the move enough times, you discover like the advanced version where you push a different button combo and it does slightly different attacks. Haven't seen any indication that that's going to be a thing. So it's like, is that just because it's not, and it's just because they've simplified it? So they're not going to have that amount of complexity even. And, you know, the balance still feels kind of weird sometimes. Like, I've just unlocked 2 more of the bros moves, and one of them is so fucking hard to pull off correctly. Because you're having to, like, you have to flick the left stick to throw a bomb from Luigi to Mario, and then you have to press A with Mario to hit the bomb. But because you're doing the timing on both halves of that, you have to, like, actually keep the rhythm on both halves of like chuck the bomb, hit the bomb, chuck the bomb, hit the bomb, but then like do that continuously. The hard part of it is like getting into the rhythm, but if you can get into the rhythm to maintain it, it's like, oh, okay, I've just got it. Yeah, I don't know. That's like, I mean, that is kind of the same as the old Mario Luigi games. There was always like 1 or 2 of the bros attacks where it's like, this one is really hard compared to all the other ones. Is it worth learning the actually slightly tricky mechanic here? Is the damage output worth it? Or are you better off just spamming one of the other ones? And I feel like they have also not uncoincidentally tried to balance it by how expensive the bros moves are. Like, one of them that's super easy and does a ton of damage, but it costs more bros moves, bros points.
I see, right.
So it's just like, oh, that's how they're balancing that, I guess.
So if you can skill up, if you can get good, then you don't have to spend so many bros points.
But the trouble with that is that like that doesn't really balance it, because it's still using your whole turn.
Right.
So like, if you're going to do more damage in one shot rather than half that damage in 2 turns, why not just like do 1 turn doing damage and 1 turn recovering your bro points using an item? Which, you know, as in all RPGs, you're going to have ample amounts of items and probably money to buy more items if you need to. The item economy is the classic problem of RPGs, where it's like, you're going to hoard all this shit or you're going to use it.
You know me. Hoard.
Yep, always hoard. That's why I'm still using equipment where it's like, oh, if I kill an enemy using a hammer hit from this hammer, I gain bros points back. But it doesn't do as much damage as these new hammers, but I'm getting these infinite free bros points. Come on. Same for health points. It's like, I'm using these boots that heal me when I kill enemies, but they do less damage than everything else at this point in the game.
Now that's Luigi logic.
Sure is. That seems to have fallen off quite a lot, actually.
Oh, really?
They kind of expended all the jokes on that one quite early on, it feels like. There's been less occurrences of Luigi logic. Being a thing.
Oh.
And there's also
no Mario masterminding.
No, that would be funny if they do flip it around at some point and just have Mario be the one who has to come up with the plan. There's also been like not many actual boss fights also. So not much chance for the Luigi logic inside the boss fights. Or rather, I would say there's been basically 2 boss fights per ocean area. Like there's basically sort of the mid boss and the boss at the end of that area before you go into the new area. It feels like not quite enough for how much time you're spending in each area. Probably could have done with 2 mid bosses per area, possibly.
Did you ever?
So yeah, that's
Did you ever play Super Mario RPG?
the original, no, and all the remake.
No, neither have I. I wonder. I do wonder if that's still better. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it is just one of those like kind of traditional. I mean, it has the active combat thing like they all do, but I wouldn't have said it's necessarily like a revolutionary thing or anything.
Sure.
It is still a pretty straight RPG. Because it was a Square game, obviously.
Well, yeah, they did what they did.
That was Mario and Luigi. Still chipping away at that. In between playing still tons of Factorio. Because I've got still more of that to do. This week I finally basically finished up redoing all of my bases on the 3 planets and the starter planet. I finished the starter planet before the last podcast, but I finished the 3 other planets rebuilding now. So I'm pretty much ready to move on to the 4th final planet. But yeah, the rebuilding process of these 3 planets has been varying levels of a giant pain in the ass. Like the volcano planet, I basically did almost nothing. I was just like, I'll just slap down a little bit of extra automation to actually make this automated and then just leave because it's pretty much good. Because I guess the sort of progress tree on the volcanic planet is easy. Like there's not, even making the science pack on that planet is like super easy. You just like mine up the special mineral and that's more or less it. You just shove that into the science pack and then leave. But then when I had to redo the swamp planet, I was like, how can I deal with the spoilage situation? How can I better deal with that? So I spent a long time coming up with a plan where it's just like, oh, well, obviously, if I use trains to ship the fruits to like little mini factories, then that'll be quicker than running it on a belt. So I can have the trains run on like, and then you can like have the trains load up and then park in a depot basically, so that as soon as the station needs the fruit, the trains are immediately going there and all that kind of stuff. And then that plan really kind of didn't work. So I built this whole base. It's like, this kind of barely still functions. It's not actually much better than the version I had before. But yeah, the spoilage situation on that planet is just still awkward. And I still haven't really figured out a solution that's not just use bots, which unfortunately I think is actually the solution again. God damn it.
Well, I don't know why this made me think of it. Maybe because you mentioned the word train. But what if Dan's train was a strain of cucumber? Because then they could be like, they look a little bit like the carriages on a train, like if you put them end to end. So you could have a
right. This is the perfect strain of cucumber for your burger. You see, it's the train strain.
It's the train strain cucumber.
You see, it's flavourful enough to make a difference.
And so and you put that in a McBurgess made with raw beef.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all going to be a combo now.
Yeah.
Crossovers. But yeah, I built this whole situation, and the spoilage situation still is messed up. But like I said last time, I feel like the solution is just use robots, which kind of just sucks because I think probably intentionally for this purpose, they introduce a new feature onto the like robot requester chests where there's just a toggle to have it automatically get rid of stuff that's not meant to be in that chest. So if you have a request set on the chest and it gets like overfilled, you can have that toggle to like have the bots take away the excess. But what that also does is if you put something in there that then spoils and turns into spoilage, the bots automatically take all the spoilage away because it's not meant to be in there. And therefore, it's just like that solves the whole like problem of spoilage kind of. Because the bots will automatically deal with it. So I'm like, I can see that is a solution, but it's just not cool.
It's not fun.
Right, yeah.
And then I went and redid the Scrap Planet most recently, and that was not actually a super different build from what was already there. I just sort of tidied it up and made it a bit more efficient. Made a nice like overflow system because of the way the scrap continuously outputs like the random selection of items, and you're only using a certain proportion of them, so you're going to have this constant like excess flow going on. I made a nice like automatic overflow system where it lets the items that overflow fill up a buffer box until the box is full, and then automatically turns on like a secondary recycler that then destroys all the excess, or recycles all the excess with quality modules to make it get better quality. And then I also redesigned my like main space platform ready to go to the 4th planet, because you need the 3 inner planets have medium-sized asteroids, and they're like relatively easy to deal with just gun turrets. But then once you go out as far as the 4th planet and towards the solar system edge, which is like where the game ends now, that's the equivalent of launching the rocket. That's when you start getting the big asteroids where you basically have to have rocket turrets to deal with those. So you have to make your platform big enough to be able to manufacture rockets on board, ideally. Yes, I redesigned that, sent it on a test flight while I was dealing with the scrap planet to see if it could in fact survive, and it did, so I'm probably good on that front. And then I've just loaded it up with all stuff ready for the 4th planet. The 4th planet is going to be kind of annoying, I suspect, because the trick of the 4th planet is it's the like super icy cold planet, because it's the furthest out planet. Which means that you have to, in order for your buildings not to freeze, you have to build like heating elements next to them using the heat pipe system that's normally used for the nuclear reactors.
Right.
So you have to, and because heat pipes don't have like an underground version, like underground pipes and underground belts, so the heat pipes are always going to be in the way, so you're going to have to like weave all your belts and pipes in between the heat pipes. And also, even not so much of a puzzle, but just an extra annoyance to it is that, like, because you're building basically on top of icebergs, you also have to insulate the ground by building concrete under everything as well.
Oh my god.
So you have to import concrete because there's no like physical materials on that planet either. So basically that's just a like test of your like automatic shipping system to be stuff, like But obviously concrete sucks to launch in rockets because it's super heavy.
Yeah, naturally.
So you better have a shit ton of rocket silos. Although I don't really have a shit ton of rocket silos. Like my main base only has like 6. And that's been sufficient so far. And I'm not really seeing that I'm going to need much more than that. Not with the rate that I've been progressing, really. Even with the concrete situation that's upcoming. I'll probably be fine. I'm also not really seeing that this last planet space is going to be very big either. It'll be like, just get in there, get the science pack done, and then go away, because there's not really much to do on that planet, really, apart from the science pack. A few more extra super late-game technologies like fusion power and railguns, which you're then going to need to fly out to the solar system edge and end the game. And then I might actually finish this run, and then I can start thinking about the speed run. The 40-hour speed run. I have I have vaguely been thinking about it already, but like, I keep thinking of things where it's like, well, how am I going to deal with this? And then I keep realizing it's like, oh wait, the enemies aren't going to be turned on. Because the achievement requires you to have it vanilla, not modded. But you can still use all the, like, in the vanilla, like, terrain map generation stuff at the start of the game to modify it.
So you can set up however you wanted. So you could just...
Yeah, so you can basically, like, make all the resource patches super rich so that they never run out, so you don't have to worry about that and that kind of thing. But then one of the things you can do is just turn off the enemies. So it's just like, how am I going to deal with the giant worms on the volcanic planet? Oh, I'm not going to, because they're not going to be there.
Right, yeah. And that will still count.
Yeah, and that will save a whole bunch of time, because you don't have to worry about... But the thing is, like, I keep thinking that, where it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to have to deal with all the enemies. I'm not going to have to worry about any military stuff. Except you do still have to deal with the asteroids on the platforms. You are still going to need, like, the rocket turrets and whatnot. You're not going to be able to avoid that. Or, well, I'm pretty sure not. I don't actually remember from when I started the game whether there is, like, an option of, like, asteroid density or whatever. Like, if that is a thing you can turn off or down.
Turn it right down. And then you might still need a couple of turrets, but not so many.
Yeah, possibly. But yes, that's been sort of upcoming thoughts of like how I might try and do that, but got to get through the end of this regular run first.
Speed run. So,
It's
so
weird.
If, so if someone speed runs that game, like for like to set an official time or anything
Yeah.
like that, like does that have
They're
to be
already
done in like
trying.
a single sitting? Or
No. There's all kinds of games that have ridiculously long speedruns like this, where it's just like they don't do it run. People speedrun Animal Crossing.
right. Okay. How does that work?
Well, obviously you do a whole bunch of like changing the system clock, obviously.
Oh, okay.
Like
Yeah. Okay.
skip through the year, but you're still playing Animal Crossing at a certain point.
Yeah.
I think I think I saw a video about like one of the previous games where it's like completing the museum speedrun is like 132 hours.
Jeez.
Even with changing the system clock all the time.
Yeah. Madness.
So yeah, that's Factorio. I'm still getting through it. Getting weird achievements for stuff that I've already done ages ago, but like the achievements didn't exist before. Like I've just got the achievement for launching a nuke, and it's like, well, obviously I've done that so many times in the past. It's just this achievement didn't exist.
Oh, right. Yeah. This is the first time I'm doing this with this in play.
Yeah, that's Factorio. Still more of that to go. And then maybe it'll be time to play Satisfactory again, because Fixmas! It's coming! I guess it's here. I think they just updated, obviously, 1st of December. Get in there. Get your Fixmas factory up and running. And
So that's it.
Apart from Rocket League, obviously.
The classic. You guys don't have any Rocket League chat?
Oh, I don't.
No,
I'm still not playing
the
it.
The new season is about to begin, and looks as uninteresting as all the other ones have up until now. They're making a new version of Neo Tokyo, not grass though. It's not Neo Tokyo plus grass this time.
Wow, it's nice to see Neo Tokyo get some love. I always liked the aesthetic of that stage.
Yeah,
Is it Akira style Neo Tokyo?
not as wrecked as that Neo Tokyo. It's more neon Neo Tokyo.
Yeah, the holograms. It's a bit more Blade Runner-y, if anything.
Yeah.
Right. Because isn't it in Akira that Neo Tokyo is like built over the bay, right? Because the city was destroyed, obviously, by the original Akira event.
Yes. That's all I've been playing. Dan, have you played any additional bits and pieces?
No, I haven't had a chance to play any Zelda, which is sad.
Just-
Next time. Nothing new. So I think that might do it for us.
Yep.
Just on time, in fact.
I did try and play some Star Fox 64 3D on the Steam Deck through Lime 3DS before I quickly discovered that's one of the things that doesn't emulate particularly well yet.
Okay.
But then I did start, as a result of looking that up, I did stumble upon do you remember the N64 decompilation project? The one that did the Zelda Majora's Mask not that long ago.
Right, yeah.
They're doing that for Star Fox. So that'll be shit hot when that gets done.
Assuming it doesn't get shut down in any way.
Well, yeah, but I think as we talked about before, it's like that's they're going to have Nintendo going to have a harder job with this one, right? Because it requires what is the legal precedent for effectively taking the ROM that you legally dumped and then decompiling it and recompiling it to be native on Windows. What is the precedent for that? Who knows? I guess it still relies on a ROM, but the project itself doesn't supply the ROM, right? It's not like the emulators that Nintendo have been taken down recently that had some secret key in them, or some
proprietary.
Something that clearly breaks the emulation rules, like Yuzu. That was Yuzu's problem. I don't know what Ryujinx's problem was. Maybe that was just pressure. was it? Yeah, Dolphin got into trouble, didn't they, for a bit because they accidentally had the Wii codes in them.
Yeah.
But they took that out, and they're still okay for now. Yeah, who knows? It'll be nice to see Star Fox 64 running at high frame rates and high resolutions, and maybe you can mod it so it looks damn sweet. Get hype. The year of Star Fox.
If only.
Still the year of Luigi. Luigi logic.
Luigi logic.
That's Luigi logic. Okay. Well, I think that'll about do it for us. Thanks for listening, everyone. We don't forget we have a YouTube channel in addition to this here podcast. It's Happy Salad. So check that one out. What do we got on there at the moment? Rift of the Decrodancer, the demo version, because that's still coming, I believe. Is the latest, as well as Zach's series of Satisfactory 1.0 run-throughs.
Yep. Still got one more video of that to upload probably this week.
So if you want to watch someone picking up lots of leaves, then that's available. And and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another one of these Saladcasts, so we'll catch you then. Bye.